welcome back, Heart Warriors and Patreon supporters. Thank you for tuning in. These are the energy tips for week 5. That is January 26th till February 1st. Yes. Good to see you again. I hope you've watched the energy update already. Summarized, the themes here for this week coming in. And even though it's a yellow week, I've already warned everybody from taking this lightly. It's going to be a mental week, a yellow week. Okay, so we have to be careful to not get caught in our head. All right, there's a lot of deception in our collective right now, which means that you will have to use or consciously use your higher perception to actually see through this. Or, and this is the bigger issue here for probably the majority of people around you, to not feel crazy, to not feel like you're going insane because nothing is matching up. Nothing is matching up. So I called this week Truth and Fantasy because both exist at the same time, and that it is, not easy to work through this without really having those tools that center you and that bring you into that place where you can actually discern truth. So this is what we're going to have to work on. And many of us here have this emphasis on our thinkingness, on our intellectualism, and we got to be careful here. Okay, so next week, take everything with a grain of salt, all right? Whatever you think you are seeing or thinking, may not be true. Okay, it may be real, but it may not be true. So forgive me, by sending this up front, but there is so much deceptive energy in the collective right now that you simply can't be sure. Okay, now what are these tools? In general, it's a congruence. It's working really with your own energies, knowing your own energies, and this is why it's so cool that you are actually tuning into the energy tips, because that's really what all these tips are based on. How can I discern truth? How can I become more congruent? How can I read my own energies better? And of course, ultimately, how can I self-regulate better? Okay, this week will all be about feminine energies. I didn't stress that in the energy update because I didn't want to go too deep into this, but it will all be about you becoming able to integrate the needed softness with this. So I've mentioned this a few weeks back, that rationalism, is a masculine approach. Okay, and this goes with our scientific paradigm, with objectivity and evidence-based science and so forth. This is a very masculine approach, and as an entire collective, we are moving into a new paradigm of everything, of how the world works, how we interact with another, how we pay our bills, how we get our goods, how, we approach science, how we approach, ourselves, humanity in context with space and so forth. We need to integrate the missing part here, and that is the heart. And the heart in the past has had this bad rep, because it was made all about emotions and emotionality. So this is not true. Actually, today we know that the heart itself is actually the organ in us that carries information. It's our second brain, and we also know that it has a higher bandwidth than our actual brain. In other words, we are dealing with an undiscovered organ within ourselves that can actually receive and transceive, meaning interpret information on a much higher level. And this is, where your higher perception comes in. Okay, and this is, sort of the part of the conflict that we're experiencing right now, is that both of our, abilities, our ability to see things from an objective point of view, from a rational point of view, from a sort of realistic point of view, and seeing things from a heartfelt point of view, from a subjective point of view, where we bring in our truth. All right, these have to be balanced out. And for this, there are some other conflicts that come up that we'll cover here. For instance, this whole discussion about what's spiritual and aren't we all moving into a higher dimension and so forth. Yes, we are, but we still are, a soul with a physical body that exists in 3D. And so in order to completely out-vibrate this, we have to learn, the mechanics of that. We have to learn how to out-vibrate our inner child aspect, our physical sensations, our physical pain, our emotional pain, our karma, our karmic relationships, and so forth. All right, so this is the process that we're all in here. And this is why we have so much problems with this, because this is territory where no one really has gone before, except for a few, metaphysical teachers or avatars, or spiritual teacher for that matter. So many of us actually discovering right now that there is something like fate, but they don't know how to contextualize this yet. And here's my take on this. I call this a karmic role. And this is something that we can all actually identify with ourselves if we do a little bit of psychic detective work. Namely, if you add everything together, if you connect everything that you have been experiencing in your life, and you see the patterns there, you'll see that there are certain things in your life that you are either resisting or avoiding, and that there are certain things that keep coming back no matter how hard you try. Okay, and these all have to do with a karmic task. We have to literally resolve this before we can move on. So my tip for you in general here this week, that is coming in, will be a reminder of this, is to look at all your life. Look at it. Zoom out. Be the witnesser. Look at the patterns. Look at the mechanics. What is it that you're avoiding? And the self-coaching tip here is pretty simple this week. It's like, can you really love who you have become? Can you really love who you have become? See, if not, then stop beating yourself up and feeling like a loser and all this victim stuff. If not, then there's something you're not seeing. There's something you're not paying attention to. Okay, and this is where energy work and all these tools come in, because there are, all these subconscious things that we, or these blind spots that we have, that are not aware to us. So yeah, start working with them. Okay. The other self-coaching tip for this week is this, whatever it is that you're thinking, feeling, emoting, doing, planning on doing, is this moving you toward your goal? It seems like a non-brainer type of question, but as an energy healer and energy coach, I can tell you that this is where 99% of us actually miss the train. Because we're not asking ourselves this. We get distracted, we get sidetracked, we get tangled up, we get into dramas, we get into blaming, we get into victimhood. And if you just took a moment and stood still and asked yourself, is this actually getting me forward here? Is this moving me into the direction that I want to go? Or is this like literally sidetracking me, or is literally pulling me into other people's dramas, or whatever it is pulling you into? My fear, or my pain, or being afraid of making mistakes, being afraid of embarrassing ourselves, whatever that is that actually moving you forward, moving you toward where you want to go? Probably not. So it's all about having a strategy, to face your fears, to face your pain. And this strategy is slightly different for each and every one of us. So we have to really work with ourselves here, with our own energy. We can't expect this to come from the outside. Another partner is not going to resolve it. Another house or another car or moving somewhere or changing job is not going to do this. It's not going to change that. Now, sometimes it can make changes for us because due to the situation that we've maneuvered into in the past, we have created sort of unfavorable conditions for what we want to manifest. And sometimes we have to sort of backtrack a little bit and start making changes, you know, from the base up. Okay, that's true. So sometimes we have to let go of a relationship, or we have to let go of a job, or, you know, a certain hope or dream, you know, just so that we can make space for something new to come in. But this week, you're going to be dealing with a lot of releases, okay? And so don't be afraid, because that will make you feel better. Last week was terrible. This pressure cooker inside, and this, like, just insanity, really, this crazy making, you know, really making you feel like you're losing it. So don't get tangled up in this. The chakras involved next week is your second, and that's where your emotions are being processed. Yes, the third and the fourth, the barrier between the third and the fourth, you know, where we've protected ourselves, or where we're trying to protect ourselves from pain, from fear. Fifth and sixth, this is all about, you know, bringing our truth into expression, you know, bringing our higher perception into a healthier expression. And while all this is affecting us, we still have the first and the seventh affecting us, you know, that has been going on for a couple of weeks here already, the astral, you know, so we still have nightmares, we still have a lot of dreams and visions, and, you know, there's a lot of, like, inner signal processing going on. Okay, so just know that. Okay, don't get afraid of that. Don't get tangled up in that. You know, it just is. All right. And next week, things want to come out. They need to come forward. They need to be expressed. They need to be released. Okay. So collectively, I've already covered this in the energy update here. We're going to see there's perfect conditions for a storm brewing on all levels. Okay, watch the banking system. There's big stuff happening there. Watch, you know, I mean, there's nothing really you can do in regards to earth changes and weather conditions, but, you know, take things seriously. You know, listen to your inner guidance. You know, don't go into the propaganda, you know, that is heavily, I mean, on all levels in all countries. Okay, it's funny, actually, if you look at it from the outside, you know, this collective crazy making. So, you know, just don't go there. Just, like, assume that the world is going crazy right now. It's not you. Okay. Physically, continued stomach and digestive issues, I've talked about this. So the headache and the sinus, this is a problem, you know, that I can't offer you anything for other than sleep more, drink more water, you know, and really take good care of yourself. But there are some aspects here that you can support your system with, and that is to really help your lymphatic system out. That's the part of your physiology that takes care of release of toxins. Okay, this is also where things go lopsided when viruses or germs come in. Okay, and this has a lot to do with eating the right foods, you know, with supporting that, also, of course, the drinking water, but really supporting all these parts in you that want to get rid of the old crud. Okay, so look this up on Google, or go to the keyword search on my blog. I've talked a lot about the lymphatic system in the past and made recommendations and videos and so forth for foods. Eat more foods with digestive enzymes, guys. That's especially if you have stomach issues. I have, you know, that will bring relief. As far as herbs and herbal essences or teas is concerned, ginger, chamomile, fennel, and mint, those are going to be your best friends here for next week. Okay, but most of all, you know, to take a time out for yourself, to really go into self-care when you feel that your energy is dropping. Emotionally, what can I say? This is still going to be rough next week. Okay, there's going to be a lot of frustration, disillusionment, you know, also the feeling of betrayal, you know, like, sort of, it's just, trust me, it's not all you, but some things you're going to have to follow up on. If you are getting red flags from your inner prompting, from your inner guidance, follow up on those. Okay, there usually is something behind that, and you don't have to justify this away. You know, go follow through on things that don't feel right to you. okay? Because emotionally, you know, this trying to keep a lid on things and not want to be emotional and not want to be angry and so forth, you know, isn't helping you. It keeps all these energies inside. Remember, everything is energy. Keeping a lid on things, avoiding things, repressing things, is not going to make them go away. They've got to go somewhere. Where do you think they're going to go? They're going to end up in the densest level of your energy body, and that's your body, your physical body. Okay? So your emotions, they need to be released. Find healthy ways to release them. No more fear of big emotions. Okay? And also on the excessiveness of things, you know, you've got to move away from this like self-centered place where everything is about your sensitivities. You know, yes, you're being an empath, yes, you're being sensitive, but this doesn't mean that the world around you has to, you know, accommodate you on all levels. Okay? We have to move into this more spiritual, emotional maturity here in order to make this transition, this transformation into a higher vibratory place. Okay, you're not going to arrive there if you know, come in with the sort of childish attitude of entitlement or specialness or hypersensitivity or, you know, protectiveness. No, you got to grow up with this. Okay, so mentally, realism, rationalism, what do I call mentalism, can all lead to superiority, and you got to be careful here, especially if you've been around this, you know, intellectual, spiritual corner for a while. Okay, it's ultimately about your inner guidance, not about the knowledge or the lingo that you have or the vocabulary that you use. Okay, and I've hinted at that in the energy update, you know, to maybe correct some of that or you know, smooth that up a little, because you know, just talking that spiritual talk isn't helping when other people don't understand you. So if you want to feel heard, if you want to feel understood, then you need to go into this place of using words that can be felt, that can be understood, keywords speaking from the heart here. Okay, and the part that's being challenged next week is that these projections of yourself, okay? And just so you know, this is where a lot of these assumptions, these unrealistic expectations, these judgments, self-bashing, that's where all this comes from. And there is a part in you that knows that, and it puts all that into this big fear cloud around your head, okay? So if you're too heady, okay, you're basically just cruising within that fear cloud and never really leave that place of judgment and inner criticism. Okay, so it's really common sense to a degree, you know, that what you're experiencing is the consequence of all your choices that you've made in the past. And if you want to have better results, then you need to look at your alignment of these choices that you made. Okay, so if I'm, you know, doing something out of fear, okay, then the consequences will most likely link me back into my fear. If I'm doing something out of lack, the consequences will, you know, I'm energizing what I'm aligning myself to, so the consequences then will most likely present or produce more lack. Okay, so instead of getting all tangled up, you know, in trying to improve and to you know, turn every stone and try to be more efficient or try harder, you know, just allow this creative chaos that is there right now to bring in new ideas, because really what it can do for you is it can show you your true strengths. And many of you actually have a superpower that has to do with seeing truth, but you haven't really gotten to the place yet how to express that without going into superiority or without defending something, you know. No, this is a power that you have, but if you misusing it, or if it comes, you know, out of the need to defend or the need to protect or the need to convince, you know, then it goes lopsided, and this is then what skews with your ability to see truth. Okay, that's why it sometimes sounds so out of this world stupid, you know, what we say when we are in this lofty spiritual intellectualism. Okay, we lose touch with reality then. Relationship-wise here, socially, you know, there is a beauty in all of this, and that is that it can actually help you to weed out all the crud. So that's why I said, you know, allow all that to release. You know, it can really help you to see the truth level of, you know, how well you were actually connected with your partner, with your kids, with your friends. There's a new energy coming in next week, and that's loyalty. Loyalty. Who are my true friends? Who are really, you know, who stood with me even if I messed up? Who are really willing to see me as a whole, you know, with all my strengths and weaknesses? Who love me unconditionally? And of course also your loyalty. Where do your loyalties lie? Okay. I've announced this before, the subject fantasy bond, you know, this is where we kind of fall in love with the idea of the relationship or marriage, and not so much with the person. It keeps coming up here in next week, you know, to really pay attention to what's fantasy and what's reality. Okay. Big tip from me, don't isolate next week. Go out, you know, try to find like-minded people, you know, join groups, investigate, you know, maybe discussion groups, study groups, meditation groups in your area. Or, you know me, you know, I'm the first one to motivate you to make one on your own. And if you have, you know, this courage to do this, then email me, okay? Because I'm sponsoring this. I'm giving you tools and vehicles, you know, that you can do this with. You know, this is something that we can all use here for the future to create, you know, these kind of groups, these kind of like-minded people that we would like to have around us. Okay. Become more clear about what you want, what you need, what you expect, and express that. Okay. Spiritually, this is here next week, because it's so rational and it's so, you know, it's all this sort of overly masculine energy that needs to be balanced out with the feminine. And the feminine approach in the metaphysical and the spiritual is giving things space, allowing things to grow, to nurture things, but without interference. So this next week is going to be integration time. So don't expect a lot of big insights. Okay, let things sit there. Let things integrate. If you are making sure that you release your stuff, okay, then nothing needs to be done. Okay, you are straddling two worlds. Accept that. You know, you do need stability. Yes, you do need money. Yes, this is all real. But you also are, you know, an eternal soul. You know, and that right now needs nurturing. So just go into the silent space, you know, into your silent power for this next week. Energetically, working with healing and integrating feminine energies is highly recommended. And then learn how to regulate your energies better, okay? Because when it comes to seeing the feminine as weak, which is the problem for most of us, you know, that makes it so hard for us to connect with femininity in us. And this is men and women alike. You know, we have to understand that there is a power in the softness, and that is not necessarily weakness, but we have to experience this first. We have to like really experience this firsthand, how this is actually a power, how softness can be a power. Okay, grounding, centering, consolidating, shifting, all these things. That's why I talk so much about this. Connect with your future self. That's another one here for this next week. I know, but don't try to force it. I have a surprise for you coming up next week, so tune back in next week. This concludes my energy tips for week 5, coming this weekend till February 1st, and I hope to see you next week. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Bye-bye.